to play ball. Welcome to the podcast with no limits. Whether it be sports, current events, or random thoughts, this is the place to step in and stay a while. Your host is a proud alumnus of Rio Hondo Prep, a former minor league baseball umpire, and a man with strong opinions. Welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast and your host, Matt Ursama.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Get Home Safe. It's a Friday edition of the podcast, and I'm sitting here on not our new couch, our older couch, but it's in a new place, a new home, if you will. This episode will air much later than it's being recorded, but this is, just for the record, the first time I'm recording in the new house here. We're very proud of our little apartment here that we got here, and very excited about new podcasts. Hopefully from the couch here, excited about all the different guests and just shows we're going to do here. But I got a great guest for you today. Really great guest, Rio Hondo Prep graduate from the class of 1992. A lot of his peers have been on the program before, so I've never really chatted with this guy, but I've heard great stories. I've heard some great topics and things about him and his playing days at RHP. He's in law enforcement currently and very proud of his RHP heritage, a huge sports fan. So a lot of big topics today with Mr. Rod Besuzzi. Rod Besuzzi from the class of 1992. Let's bring him on the program right now here on the Get Home Safe podcast. Let's see here. Looks like he is there. We got to connect to some audio. There he is, Rod Besuzzi, in between workouts, it looks like. Yep. Welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast, Rod.
What's up, Matt?
Rod, man, for those not watching on YouTube, we got a Darryl Strawberry jersey. We got a Shaquille O'Neal jersey behind Rod. He's got no sleeves. He's got the killer gun showing there, and he's got a bench press behind him. He's fitting in reps here. So
gotta stay in shape.
Add away, Rod. Absolutely, man. How are things? What's new and exciting? I mean, Rod, you and I have never really talked before. I appreciate you coming on the program.
No, yeah. I mean, I was introduced to your podcast by Dave Joe when you interviewed Mark Carson, I believe, for the first time about Rio Hondo Prep football. And I'm at work and driving around. I believe it was did you start this in 2020, like the summer of 2020 or during COVID?
Yeah, did an episode like in January, February, didn't know what I was doing, and then really took off in like April of 2020 where we started doing like a guest every day almost.
Got it. So I listened to that and I thought that was pretty cool. And then I got injured at work. I had elbow surgery. So I was out a few months and I would go on these long, like 6-mile hikes because I'm right next to the trails in Laguna Beach. So I would go on these long hikes and I would start listening to, David Goggins books, Pat Tillman stuff. And then I looked at your podcast and I said, some of your guests like Paul Clark, Todd Carson, Rick Johnson. I'm like, okay, I want to hear what Paul has to fabricate on, how good he was and all.
Yeah.
These guys. And I grew up pretty much with these guys, in high school. So it's fun listening to, their perspective in high school, what high school was like for them and what they're doing now.
Oh, absolutely. A few of my friends joke that it's the Rio Hondo Radio Network because I have so many Rio Hondo Prep alums, but that's the people I know, or at least am connected to, like yourself. You got the RHP football shirt going on there, working out.
Yeah. Mark Carson hooks it up every year.
I gotta love it, man. Mark knows how to promote the program, and I try to do what I can with this podcast just so that people are involved also. So what's it like, Rod, as a guy? You graduated in 92. I mean, quite 30 years ago, basically. Yep. And I try to explain this to my friends. Like, there's still this care, no pun intended, but this like interest in your alma mater, high school football, at least like, hey, how the boys doing, right? I mean,
exactly.
You're a big sports fan, but there's nothing quite like your alma mater, right?
Right. I mean, especially, coming from, like, I'm telling you, people at work, they don't believe me that I played 8-man football. I played there was like 20, 30 guys maybe in the entire football program, JV varsity. Like they just don't get that. And I'm like, bro, we never lifted weights. We're a freaking track team. All we did was run because we had to play both ways. And they still can't. They just like, no. I'm like, yeah, really. That's what it was. And it's like a close knit type, brotherhood of dudes who, I was just a role player type dude. I wasn't no, Rick Johnson, Mike Whiteside, none of those dudes, but still we put in the work. We did the practices. We ran a lot of laps, just to stay in top, shape. And I was always last in the laps because I hated running those laps, but it is what it is. And now they got this gorgeous weight room sponsored by Dave Joe.
Yeah.
And these dudes just, they're doing, it's a football program, and that's what Mark's making it. And hopefully it just continues to get momentum and continues to keep growing.
Yeah. Down in your neck of the woods where you live, Mission Viejo has been a huge program for years. They got 100 dudes on the sideline in their games and a top-notch facility. So yeah, I'm sure that it is hard to believe with some of your peers. Like, yeah, I played in this tiny school that didn't have many players. So, but it's cool. I love looking back. I love talking to people about their experiences there, because when the Lakers win a championship, all right, that's cool. The Dodgers win a World Series, that's cool. But I don't know, when Rio is successful, you feel a part of that still, even though it's been such a long time.
Yeah, and what Mark does, Mark makes you feel a part of that. Like Mark reaches out to me and says, "Hey, you want to come on the sideline? Hey, I'm bringing some dudes in from your class. They're going to be on the sideline. I'll get you a sideline pass." Stuff like that. It's kind of cool that he cares enough to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And Rod, I got to say, you're making up for lost time with the whole weight room thing. They got the bench press there behind you.
Yeah.
You're looking good, man. I'm sure, law enforcement, you got to be in shape and everything, but man, looking good.
But so I got a 16-year-old boy who's playing high school football. He does lacrosse. He's a multi-sport athlete. I know you're good. You like that.
Yeah. And
dudes put up, he's 6'2", 220, and I can't keep up with them. So I do my best to keep up with them.
Now, so he did, football, lacrosse. We'll definitely talk about that. I think most, father and son, I talked to the Lees quite a bit. He said there was a lot of basketball games, in the front yard. Is there any one-on-one with dad these days, or has he got the best of you?
So, we played a one-on-one game on Thanksgiving. We were up at my mother-in-law, Gretchen Hampton's house, my wife's Noelle Hampton, now Noelle Besuzzi. So we played a basketball game, and he backed me down. I was like, he's just stronger than me, and I still, have that competitive streak, try to beat my kid, but like I couldn't, unless I was just fouling him all the time. And here's a funny story. We just got back from Maui on a vacation. The hotel we stayed at had a indoor racquetball court and a basketball hoop, a 10-foot basketball hoop inside. Dude was dunking a racquetball barefoot, 2 hand in 1 hand. I'm like, I couldn't even touch the net as a sophomore or junior in high school.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's, I gotta try and stay in shape.
The kid you used to hold his hand walking across the street is now dunking on you and everything.
Yeah.
Does he get that? Does he get the athleticism from mom, Rod? What do you think?
Oh man, you went there.
I'm asking a question. There's a 50-50 shot.
No, that Hampton side is pretty athletic. My wife's athletic, but her sisters, Alana, Noelle, very athletic.
Yeah, the Hampton name indeed. And for those who don't know, Oric Hampton Sr. was the founder of the whole Kerry program. Eventually, Rio Hondo Prep came along. So Hampton Hall. I said, man, Rod, when we were off the air, I said, Rod, you married into the Hampton family. And you were like, no. She married into the Besuzzi family. I go, oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. But but I love being part of their family. I call her mom. It's just, they're wonderful. They're a great family. I call Cherish my sister, PJ, Philip Hampton Jr., my brother, just we're family, it's pretty cool to be a part of that family.
That's awesome, man. Well, Rod, we got a lot to talk about. Your experiences growing up, Kerry Youth League, Rio Hondo Prep. You're currently in law enforcement down there in Orange County. I definitely want your thoughts and some stories there. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's just let's go down memory lane a little bit. Rod, where did you grow up, and how did you find Kerry Youth League?
Okay, so I grew up in Duarte. Are you familiar with Duarte at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up in Glendora. Glendora, kind of similar to Duarte, right?
Okay. Right.
Not really.
No, not really. But anyway, so Duarte is basically two cities, in my opinion, especially back in the early 80s, early 90s. There's Duarte, where there's Bradbury Estates, above Huntington Drive, where Peter and Paul Clark grew up, Danita Clark grew up. And then there was Duarte, called the Low End, below Duarte Road. And back in the 80s, it was a big like gang area, Duroc Crips. Okay. So, and I went to Maxwell Elementary School, which was probably a quarter mile from my house, where I would walk to school. And it was like, I'm a white dude and I'm in this school with primarily Hispanic and Black kids, which was cool with me. I didn't care because I didn't know any different, because that's where I grew up. So, yeah, it's just, I'm pretty proud of where I grew up, because it was kind of a rough area, and so when I was in this Head Start program, because it was like a low income community where it was at a church. But I believe that's how I got introduced. My grandmother at the time, because my grandmother and my mom pretty much raised me. My dad was out of the picture. And so once they got the information on Kerry Youth League, they signed me up right away. I was probably 5 years old, so 79, maybe 80. I got signed up and I was on the Atlantic Pirates.
Oh, another Atlantic guy. I tell you, I have nothing but Atlantic Pirates coming out of my ears on these podcasts.
Yeah.
It's killing me.
Yeah. And so Bill Orsberg, Mr. Orsberg, was my first coach.
Wow.
And I started in baseball season. And I remember my first game. It's T-ball. I remember it being T-ball or something. And I hit the ball. I'm running the bases. And I get home and he's like, touch home plate. And I didn't see a home plate because it was covered by the tee. They didn't move the tee. And I wouldn't touch the tee. I'm like, I don't see the home plate, Mr. Orsberg. He's like, touch home plate. I go, I don't see it. And he moved the tee and I touched it. And that was my intro right there.
Wow. I like it. That is awesome. So were you like a kindergartner, super young guy, or kind of a little older?
I think when I first started, I was a kindergartner, maybe first grader.
Okay. So I've been told by at least Pete and Paul Clark, the Clark brothers, and you mentioned their family as well. So did you know them kind of before Kerry Youth League, or did you guys become teammates? How did that all come about?
So I didn't know. I knew of the Clark family because the Clarks, I don't know if you had to sell Christmas wrapping paper or not, but that was a main fundraiser and Christmas cards. The Clark family would be like at the top of the board. They'd have a board outside concession stand. They'd always be at the top. So I knew about the Clark family, but I wasn't friends with Peter because he was older than me and Paul was older than me. I got to be friends with Pete pretty much after high school. After we graduated, we became very, very close friends. And I would always be at his house. I would always see PC, Paul Clark, Danita, Mrs. Clark, like another mom to me. So just that's how that whole relationship started.
Well, I mean, what a special group of people, just a wonderful family. And, Rod, Pete had some health issues recently. I mean, he's doing so much better now. It's a miracle, really. What are your thoughts on kind of seeing one of your great friends, Pete Clark, go through something so horrible, and then to see where he has come? I mean, take me through your thoughts and emotions with all that.
Oh man. So that day, I actually was going to Rio Hondo Prep with my wife, and I have an 8-year-old son too, Kellen. So we're driving up to Rio Hondo Prep to watch my nieces play in a softball game. I get a call from Dave Joe, and he says, Peter collapsed at one of his baseball game he was coaching, and he got rushed to the Arcadia Methodist. I'm like, that's not good. So I get to the game. I see I see Chris Horton. I sit down next to Chris Horton. He was my former coach. And we talked for a little bit, and he didn't really have much information. I saw Mr. Drain, talked to him. No one really knew anything, right? So Mark calls me and David Joe, like on a FaceTime type deal. He's like, I saw Pete, doesn't look good, and I couldn't even keep it together, dude. Like I was losing it. So I went up the next day with Dave Joe. We saw Pete, and he was intubated. I don't know how to, where he had the tubes in his mouth and everything. And I'm like, I still to this day, like you never want to see someone you love in a position in that sort of situation. Yeah. So we saw him that day. He was obviously, out. Then we go the following Sunday. Now he's up in LA at a Kaiser. I think it's a Kaiser up in LA. I'm not sure. And we see him, and Pete's like, he's awake, everything, but he's doped up. Like he is just out of his mind. He thinks he's John Wick. He thinks he was just, but I loved it because I got to see my friend, right? And he knew who I was, and we talked. And here's a funny one. I mean, you might have, so I use kind of, I don't use Bill Barnes language, but I use kind of language. So you might want to use a disclaimer like you do with Barnes. Hey, we'll get into Barnes in a little bit too.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I see Pete and we're talking. I go, hey, Pete, there's a Church of Scientology right out the window, man. And he's like, they can scientize these nuts. And I'm like, all right, we got Pete back.
He's back. He's back.
So yeah, I mean, that was difficult, and then once he was released, we went up and met him at his house and had lunch and talked for a few hours. And just, I take for granted my, not spending as much time as I should with him. He was the best man at my wedding. Wow. So, I mean, like I live an hour and a half away from Pete. I need to see Pete more, and that just right there shows how we take things for granted. You never know.
That's so well said. I can't tell you how many times it's sad that it almost takes a tragedy for us to put things in perspective, for us to be like, man, I need to see that friend more. I need to go see this family member more, whatever it may be. So yeah, hopefully if the last year taught us anything, is that anything is possible, negative or positive, and we got to take advantage of the relationships that we have. So yes, Pete's doing well. I mean, you look on Facebook, he's traveling all over the country now. It's like, what happened to the guy that was in the hospital bed?
Yeah. Good. I mean, good for him. And guess what, Matt? That just shows him right there. Like, I need to do more. I need to experience life, right? Like, that's what we all need to do. Just, can't take it for granted.
Oh man, absolutely. Well, yeah, Pete coached me when I was in 5th grade. He came over, coached the Gators for 1 year. Little known fact, I know, but we beat those Atlantic Pirates in a football championship. They got us in basketball. I'm not bitter at all, but yeah, we had Pete on our side for a short time. Yes, can't wait to have Pete Clark on the program.
Yeah, now, Pete needs to get on the program.
Right? Dave Joe said to have him on. You've now said to have him on.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, that was how you reached out to me about the podcast and said, hey, I'd love the show. I'm like, oh man, thank you. And I asked you to come on and you said, yeah, you got to get Dave Joe and Pete Clark on first. So yeah, Dave Joe's been on. Pete Clark, the pressure's on. It's building.
Yep. Got to get him on.
Got to have him on. So anyway, back to growing up, Rod. You're playing T-ball at Kerry Youth League. You grew up in Duarte, rough area. You talked about that. Who else besides Mr. Orsberg were some of your coaches throughout Kerry Youth League that had kind of an impact on you?
All right. So one more for Mr. Orsberg. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So Atlantic bus, you get picked up by the bus, you get dropped off by the bus at your bus stop. Right. So when I was picked up by the bus, it was the last stop before you get to Kerry Youth League. It was at like Beardsley Elementary School. That's where I got picked up. When I got dropped off at Beardsley, it was the last stop. So I'm going through Arcadia, Monrovia, up through Upper Duarte, all that. And dude, I'm telling you, when I was a kid, I'm still a knucklehead, but I was a knucklehead. So I was like, I was always getting into trouble. And there's this one spot where the bus would drive over these bumps, and dudes, I always sat in the back, and we would just, once we hit the bumps, we would like fly over the seats, like, you know, just exaggerating the bump, but just flying over seats. And the bus, Mr. Orsberg and the buses back then had those long mirrors, and they would look up and they could see everything, right? So finally, when we get to my stop, my last stop, Mr. Orsberg stops the bus. My grandmother and mom are waiting in the car, walks back to the back of the bus and open hand spanks me on my butt, spanks me. And I'm like, I was shocked. I was like, I've never been spanked before. Like literally like hand on shoulder, spank, spank, spank. Don't do this again on the bus. You know, get out of here type thing. And I don't think I cried. I go to the car and my grandmother could tell like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong with you? What? I just got spanked. He's like, you probably deserved it. You're lucky we haven't spanked you before. You know, and that was it, man. Like, can you imagine a coach spanking a kid nowadays? They call the sheriffs, they call the cops, it'd be on the news, like, but that's what I needed. At the time, that's what I needed. My mom and my grandmother knew I needed a male influence in my life. And so Mr. Orsberg, I love Mr. Orsberg. I still quasi keep in touch with Mr. Orsberg this day. He gave me my first job after I graduated high school. I worked for Mr. Orsberg.
Wow.
So coaches after that, Mr. Lee, Scott Moore, Mr. Horton, Greg Loomis, those were pretty much my coaches. Wow. Growing up into Kerry Youth League and then into Rio Hondo Prep.
Man, that's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, you're right about the whole, you know, male discipline thing. You said, you know, you needed that. Your dad wasn't in the picture. And I do think that, I love your grandparents and mom's response, by the way, like, oh, you deserved it. You know, that's, we need more of that. I don't know where it's gone, but you know, I remember a similar story to like my dad. It was my brother. I got hit a few times. I learned pretty quick, but like, he said, my dad, he came home and he lied about something, and he was going to get spanked, and he said, no, actually I lied about it. This is what he goes, okay, you're going to get 2 now. You're getting 2 now for lying. So I was like, oh man. But yeah, that's something I think that is an issue in society is not just, you know, fathers, you know, not being there, but I mean, I don't know how people function without the famous phrase, wait till your dad's home. Because that put the fear of God in me. And to not have that, I mean, God bless the women that do it solo, because it's got to be hard raising kids without that.
And a lot of my friends, you know, when I was younger, it was all moms. There was no dads in the picture, you know? So, and they all went to Kerry Youth League, which I don't know if it was by design or just by, you know, convenience, but maybe those moms knew that they needed like a male role model influencer type thing in their sons' lives.
Well, and that's a good point, because I've heard that, or at least it's been kind of interpreted this way, that Kerry Youth League, if you really think about it, it kind of was that organization for, and a lot of kids who play sports, they'll talk about coaches being father figures and everything, but Kerry Youth League really was that organization that was there for kids of either divorced families or who didn't have a parent in the picture, those who did not have a church home. I mean, it became that church home. So I don't know. I think it's great for families who are intact. I mean, that's wonderful too, but I think it really develops kids who had kind of a broken home type of place, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, Matt, it probably kept me out of a lot of trouble. Like I told Mr. Horton this when I saw him at that softball game. I said, Mr. Horton, I would not be in the position I am today without Kerry Youth League and Rio Hondo Prep. I truly believe that. I mean, I know it because, you know, just the way I was and the way, you know, like I felt like I had no consequences. And then when I went to Kerry Youth League, there was consequences, right? Yeah. So I definitely needed it. And that's, you know, today is proof of that in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. The man you've become, and people can look up to your kids and everything as well. I got to ask you that. I should ask other people this, but speaking of Kerry Youth League specifically, what makes Kerry Youth League different than Little League Baseball, Pop Warner football, youth basketball, whatever it is, you've had kids, I'm sure, who played sports and everything, as you mentioned earlier. What is it about Kerry Youth League that for you obviously helped you grow up quickly and to become a responsible man? What is it that sets Kerry Youth League apart from other youth sports organizations?
All right. Okay. I'll start off the first part of your question. So I have a 16-year-old and I have an 8-year-old. 16-year-old started Pop Warner when he was 6 years old, tackle football. I coached him all the way up through 8th grade. Then I stopped coaching because I'm like, he's going to be in high school. He doesn't need dad on the sideline anymore. Right. And there's like 6 other dads on the sideline, but he played basketball after that too. My wife was his basketball coach until he got into junior high. Then he had another basketball coach, but that was a completely separate organization, right? That was through NJB. And then some club team. He played Little League baseball. That was through Aliso Viejo Little League. You know, that's where we pretty much live. All different kids. Some kids maybe overlap, but all different kids, different coaches. There was no Mount Care. There was no, sleepovers. There was no. So Care Youth League, you get football, same coach. You get basketball, same coach. You get baseball, you get soccer, same coach. And it's the same kids. Then you got your Mount Cares, you got your sleepovers, you got your water balloon war, you got all that stuff included. And I mean, there's nothing like it. There was not, I don't know really how it is today, but back then for me, man, it was like, I was like in heaven, dude. It was like the best thing, something for me that I needed, because like I was away from home. So my mom, didn't have to deal with me. By the way, my mom was disabled. She had cerebral palsy, so she couldn't drive. She couldn't walk. She could walk a little bit, but so she had some disabilities. That's why my grandmother helped. So, for me to have Kerry Youth League and for me to just, time away, energy spent, that's it was good for our family and for me. And I got to be with this. Like I grew up playing sports with Jeff Fairley. It's like, that's kind of cool, and other guys, Brandon Lee, was a good friend of mine. And we all played all sports together.
And I've talked about this. You've heard the podcast. I don't understand how kids these days don't play all the sports or multiple sports. Like I would get so bored doing one thing all year round. Like,
right.
I love football. Football was my favorite, but it was cool moving to basketball, then baseball, coming full circle, even soccer, we played that. And it was just, I don't understand how kids don't play multiple sports. Cause how else do you find what you want to do or what you're good at,
Right. And we forgot did you have the Olympics?
Yes. The track
Olympics.
Meet, and then every 4 years. Yeah.
What place has the Olympics, dude, where you get to get a medal and go on stage? That's so cool.
Yeah.
And I represented Italy because my last name is Besuzzi. So, it was fun, man. I got into a lot of trouble at Kerry Youth League too, but it was still fun.
Well, that's good. Like Scotty Small's mom says it in The Sandlot, go get into trouble. You're supposed to get into trouble as a kid. That's how you learn too.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So any other memories from Kerry Youth League? Not summer trip, but camps. You seem like you love sports. Like you just love the whole program, the whole concept of it.
Yeah, I loved it. Going to Mount Care in the summertime was really cool. And back then, they had the Jeep rides where you go in the back of the Jeep and whoever, Scott Moore or Charlie Parsons would drive that Jeep, and kids would almost be flying out of that thing, dude. Just driving, up and down the dirt roads and stuff, the horseback riding, the hiking, mountain Baden Powell. I hated that, but I did it, swimming in Jackson Lake or whatever it was called. The sleeping outside in the bunks and having inspections and inspection. It's just where else do you get that?
Nowhere.
The morning, didn't somebody do the bugle call in the morning? Wake up.
Yeah.
I had that, I think.
Yeah. Flag raising.
Flag raising.
We paid tribute to the flag back then. What a concept, teaching kids at a young age. All those things. It was
right.
It was phenomenal. I can't.
Yeah. So here's one good story of Mount Kerry. So Scott Moore, did they have Engine Joe back when you were there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not politically correct, I know, but Engine Joe, Scott Moore dressed up as Engine Joe, and we're all in the mess hall going to eat, and he comes and bangs on the windows and says some Indian language or whatever. So we all run out and chase him. He pretends to steal someone's car, peels out and drives off, right? I mean, that was so cool to me. Like, I'm a 9-year-old kid, and it's like, where else do you get that, you know?
No way.
And then the winter camps too. Like, that's the first time I ever saw snow, was at those winter camps, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I would have never had any type, like, if I was just at home, we would not go to the snow, we would not go to the mountains, we would not go to the beach, or, you know what I mean? Like, it was all Kerry Youth League, for me at least, being able to do those things.
I don't think there's a better place for a kid than Mount Kerry. Not just being in the mountains and a campground, but just how well taken care of it all was. The experiences there. Talk about playing football in the snow was one of the coolest things I've ever did.
Yeah.
Those were vicious battles too when you're 10 years old, going at it. Charlie Parsons did such a good job over the years with that place. And now one of your classmates, Bill Lee, is running things. And I don't know how if you've been up there lately, but he's done some amazing work.
I have not been up there, but my youngest son, the little man, I call him, he went up with the Pollocks, which is Cherish's, Larry Pollock, Cherish Pollock, and their family for a couple family camps. And he loved it. He got to shoot a bow and arrow, got to, play the games, and he's super athletic. So he loves that stuff.
Yeah, that's a man. Bill has done incredible work up there. I visited up there about a year ago, and it's just a really cool place. So Rod, how did Rio Hondo Prep come about? I know for some people, it doesn't seem like a viable option because it's like, oh, private school. And it's like, okay, that's just off the table. But I think Rio Hondo Prep takes pride in working with families, working with kids to get them there. Was it a challenge for you to get to Rio, or was it kind of off the table, or did you know that was going to happen?
So when I was I believe it was the probably fifth grade, I was too heavy to play in my division, probably, which was AAA football, whatever. I don't know. I was too heavy. I call it, I was chunky but funky. Okay. So I got moved up to Chris Horton's Vikings team. That's the first time I ever met Mr. Horton. So I got moved up to his team, and he was a great coach, one of my favorite coaches ever. And he started, kind of like Mike Dowd was on that team. A couple of guys who were already in Rio Hondo Prep, and they were sixth graders. I was a fifth grader. They were on the team. And so I'm like, what's this Rio Hondo Prep thing? I kind of, I know Jeff Fairley was going to Rio Hondo Prep at the time. So once I was going to graduate from elementary school and go to a middle school in Duarte, my grandparents, on my father's side, who they lived in Arcadia, I asked them about Rio Hondo Prep, and they said, let's look into it. I think they met with Arliss Dowd at the time, who was the principal, and we set up a payment plan. And I went to Rio Hondo Prep. At that time, that's when they still rolled you back. So I was a sixth grader. I was a sixth grader at Rio Hondo Prep, and that was my first time.
Do you think Rio, similarly, okay, you're a kid, you go through Kerry Youth League, and you said that you don't know where you would ended up without Kerry Youth League. You go to Rio, and we all become teenagers, right? And so we kind of have this desire to get in trouble maybe more and stuff. Do you kind of have a similar outlook to Rio Hondo Prep as you did with Kerry Youth League?
As far as getting in trouble?
Well, no, just as far as it's developing you, if you had gone to another school, things would have not worked out for you. I mean, I don't know what would have happened had I gone somewhere else. I thought the structure of Rio and everything, all the opportunities there, was something that I soaked up from the get-go.
So I had my sixth grade year. It was pretty rough as far as discipline. I was probably in the principal's office once every 2 weeks. Like I was a knucklehead, dude. And I took my Maxwell Elementary School, where nobody made you do anything, mentality or whatever, to Rio Hondo, and that wasn't going to work there. Like I would make paper airplanes and throw them at the teachers, and like stuff like you can't do that at Rio Hondo Prep, right? But I thought I could get away with it, and just stuff like that. Just, but eventually, I think I bought into the structure, the school, and in where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So
I think when kids go to Rio, like maybe after that first year, you get a couple different groups of people. You get people that, like, as you mentioned, it's where you wanted to be, even if you had some, issues with discipline or whatever. And then you run into guys who are like, you know what, this isn't for me. I want to go somewhere else. Doesn't make them bad guys or whatever, but it's not for everyone. Right. It's a small school. So I think the guys that stick it out, guys or girls, they get a very, they learn a lot from it. They're very, very beneficial to them. When you're in high school, you got to play ball with guys like Jeff Fairley, Pete Clark, Todd Carson, Rick Johnson, Mike Whiteside, John Correa. I'm just trying to name them all. Bill Lee, John Lee, legendary names. I've seen the banner, right? The banners, I should say. Well, here's what I want to know. I've tried to ask Dave Joe this. I've tried to ask Todd this. I know the athletes and the great man that these guys grew up to be. I want to know what these guys were like in high school. I want to know who was the guy, who was the prankster, who was the guy who was a goof, who was maybe a bully. I don't know. Take me through some of the names, the guys you grew up with, and what it was like growing up with them in high school.
So I say John Carrillo, good friend of mine, also in law enforcement. He was pretty much he was a prankster. He was a dude who liked to, on the down low, do some pranks. Todd was cool. I mean, Todd and I got closer as we got older. Not necessarily, I don't think we were very close in high school, but after high school, we were pretty close. Rick's Rick, man. Like Rick had the power. Rick knew he had the power as far as like he could pretty much, he'll probably be mad at me for saying this, but he could pretty much do what he wanted, and just because he was Rick.
Yeah. Like
dudes who are dudes, they get special privileges, I believe. That's how, so, if I needed something done as far as like through Mr. Johnson or something, I just go to Rick and Rick would work it out. But Pete was always like I played freshman football with Pete, or JV football when I was a freshman with Peter, because he was like 75 pounds as a sophomore. And, Pete was cool, but like when I first went on my first summer trip in 1987, that was pretty much like when I, figured out like, man, this is where I want to be. It was tough. The morning runs, the trip, the place set up, all that stuff. I mean, it was work, but to be able to, go to, I've been to like all 50 states, and it's all because of Rio Hondo Prep. And those summer trips is when that's in college, at least, that's when I got the really bond with Pete, because we were tent partners, like that's when I got the bond with Todd Carson, because we would go to, like a Applebee's. This is in college. We weren't in high school. We would go to Applebee's after the play and try to watch a ball game or something, like just stuff like that, which was pretty cool. That's when we really get to know these guys.
Oh man, that's awesome. I do have a few sources. I know a few of your former classmates. Let's see. You could confirm or deny this. Let's see. It looks like I heard you were Luigi in a play for the Wright brothers. Is that accurate? You were in a Wright brothers play of some kind? And then another play, you were in charge of the underground escapees of, I mean, do you remember the trip plays by any chance?
Yeah. So I think Rod Heaton was Luigi. Okay. I don't know. I don't know what I was in that play. I forget, but I was always like in the gang of, kids who were, how the plays were based around, like the first play I was in, Gang in the White House, right? Mr. Jim Smith was Teddy Roosevelt, and you know, it was that whole Teddy Roosevelt era, and I was like Tim Lenny was supposed to be his son, and I was one of Tim Lenny's friends and whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, the trip plays were fun. I was I don't know, I forget about the Underground Railroad thing, but
the Jewish smuggler. I don't know.
Yeah, that was it. And Bill Lee was the lead Nazi who was trying to get us. So
bad guy, Bill. Bad guy.
Can you imagine that play being put on today?
I know. I was thinking about that when Steve Almond said, "Yeah, Bill Lee was not." I go, "What?" And Bill Lee is a proud U.S. Marine for anyone out there listening. But you got to have a villain in plays. You know,
he had the swastika. He had everything, man.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, man. Like
people are
going through these different states and campgrounds, and we're doing this play. I mean, this would be like on CNN, and
you're right.
It'd be all over the place.
I mean, it's a movie, guys, or it's a play.
Yeah.
Like it's meant. No, you're saying this person is bad. If you promoted this person, then you'd have an issue. But to say a bad guy is a villain, I mean, that's not a big deal to me. But you're right. In today's world, oh my goodness, all over the place. CNN trip plays were very cool. It sounds like you guys did some big ones back in the day.
Yeah, we did. I mean, play setups for like 2 hours.
Oh,
and it was
your workout.
Yeah, you're working out. Yeah.
I don't think you've talked about your coworkers and things like, there's no way you can believe some of the things that you did. Yeah, we used to do this trip play in campgrounds. It's set up in a massive stage. You're like, no, this is a joke. You're like, no, it's real. That's crazy.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, I've only shared it with like close friends at work, and they still are like, man, you were no play. I'm like, I got video, bro. I got a VHS. I could show you, but whatever,
What's Rod? I mean, we got to talk some sports here. Rio Hondo Prep football, which we both know and love. I mean, you were on great basketball team, that team in '91, the class before you, and when you guys were juniors. I mean, I don't know all the details of you being a part of the team and everything, but any sport you want, any topic you want. I mean, what was your experience like with athletics at Rio Hondo Prep?
So football was like what I love to do. I like playing football. So I think it was my sophomore year. Somebody wasn't doing their job at linebacker. I was like, I don't even know. I must have been on the sideline or something. Somebody wasn't doing their job. Hey, what'd Mr. Lenny say? My grandmother, what's the saying?
My grandmother in for Besuzzi.
No, but it was my grandmother in for Minna. Besuzzi, go. So I ran in. I ran in and I played linebacker and I played good. And I got a pick, and that was it. Mr. Lenny's like, dude, you're not going to be a nose guard anymore. You're going to be a linebacker. So I'm like, cool. So, I mean, I had a pretty good sophomore year lettered. And then my junior year, 90, that's the year we won the CIF championship. I was a backup linebacker to Rick Johnson and David Joe.
Ooh.
And so we have so we have practice, right? Like the first time we're in pads, we're doing practice, and Mr. Lenny sets up this drill where it's like a bull in the ring, one-on-one deal with me and Rick Johnson. And so we're just going at it, just boom. And he just manhandling me, like just moving me all over the place. And I'm trying to resist and everything. And so we do this drill, and Mr. Lenny's like, all right, Besuzzi, that's probably gonna be the hardest you'll be hit this entire season. He walks away, and Rick's like, no, it's not. these dudes bringing on varsity.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, that was pretty cool. And then, I played a little bit. I think Dave Joe got hurt in the web game. So I played pretty much in that, almost the whole game in that game, which was fun. And just being on that team and practicing and, playing a little bit here and there. I remember the first time I played in a game was at Templeton. Oh, and nice. We're dressing in the locker room, and Rick's like, hey, you be ready to go. I'm like, Mr. Johnson's not going to put me in. He's like, I'm going to put you in. So I think we're up a couple touchdowns. Rick's out there, and then Rick just comes off. He's like, Besuzzi, go. he just runs off the field. I'm like, what? He's like, go. So I go out there and like, I'm playing varsity football, make a couple tackles. And I mean, that's just, that's what I'm talking about. Rick could just be like, hey, go in.
Yeah.
And I went in. So
being the best player and the coach's son kind of has its benefits.
Yeah.
Well, take me through Randall Johnson and Gary Lunny, two legends who've passed on. And I talk about them with a lot of different people who played under them, because I think it pays tribute to them. What are some of your memories of Randall Johnson and Gary Lunny, two legends in the Rio Hondo Prep football program?
Well, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson had his wit about him, his sarcasm, but I mean, you could tell like he cared about everyone on the team, not just the dudes who scored touchdowns or, made amazing tackles, interception. He cared about the dude who was, on the sideline. He wanted, I believe he wanted everybody to play. He wanted everybody to get in and have that experience. Mr. Lenny, the same way. I mean, you could tell they cared. They wanted to win. They're coaches. Coaches want to win, but they did care about their players, from the dude who, was the fringe player to the dude who never even, stepped on the field until they got him in the game, because they knew he didn't play in the game yet. So, I mean, that's what I admired about them. They cared about their players,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I'm trying to think. I don't think Rio Hondo Prep football could have kind of gone to where it did without those guys. I mean, they were kind of the architects, really. And Oric Hampton Jr. as well, working with the offensive line and just that the program was in great hands for so long. They eventually had to pass the reins. And Mr. Ken Drain, Greg Loomis, who coached defense for a while, and now it's in the hands of Mark Carson. I mean, it's been fun to see the evolution of the Rio Hondo Prep football program.
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you this story. When I can't remember, it was junior or senior year, Mr. Johnson would bring out his son, Randy Johnson, Rod Heaton, I believe Dave Carson, I'm not sure, and they would practice against us in full pads. Again, doing this day, they'd be arrested for that. You can't do that, right? But they would have these guys who are like 20-year-old men now, 19, 20, and they're practicing against us. And so, I mean, they came up with things like that to try and make us better, which was pretty cool.
Oh man, that's hilarious. So, yeah, the 90 team wins the CIF football championship. Dave Joe talked about that. Todd's talked about that a few times. I mean, the first title since 82. So there was kind of a drought there to Rio Hondo standards. I mean, what was it like winning that CIF championship at Faith Baptist, right?
At Faith Baptist, yeah. And their main running back was a little dude. His nickname was, I don't even know his name, but his nickname was Lofi. And Lofi was a good running back, low to the ground, couldn't really, make cuts, couldn't really see him very well until he was in the secondary. But those dudes shut him down, man. Hey, am I claiming the fame in that game? I made the starting goal line defense for that game. I was a starter on goal line, but I don't think I ever went in on goal line. So that's all right.
Fantastic. Well, Rod, talk to me about basketball. I mean, probably the greatest, no, not probably, is the greatest basketball team that's ever gone through Rio Hondo Prep, that 1991 team. Did you see the floor much? I mean, if you didn't, not a big.
I wasn't on that team, Matt.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But I went to all the games.
Okay.
And my boy Todd Carson told me he was going to dunk in one of those games. He said, I'm going to try and dunk in one of these games. I'm like, Todd, you can't even touch the rim. He's like, my adrenaline. And so whatever. I mean, I love watching those guys play. It was amazing. I mean, to see them play and to see the people, the competition, the Rebay Academy players they had, dudes 6'5", 6'6", and for real to hang with those dudes and to play defense like they did and, just move the ball. Like Mr. Drain had those guys squared away, and he had those guys ever since they were 8th graders or younger than that. I don't know. But, just to witness that and to see that and to go to school with those guys and to, just to it was pretty cool, man. It was pretty cool. And the girls, they were like parallel to them. They were like doing the same thing.
Oh, that's right. The regional team, whatever. And your wife,
my
right?
wife Noelle. Yeah, my wife Noelle was she was like Lakers, Kurt Rambis. You know who that is, right?
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Okay. She was like a Kurt Rambis, dude. She'd go out there like foul like their best player or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I think she got some play time in that one of those final games because someone fouled out or got hurt or something. But her sisters were both like, all CIF, basketball players. But it was just cool having that. I mean, in the whole school, the whole community, everybody at Kerry Youth League, Rio Hondo Prep, were just involved in that whole thing, And like Dave Joe said, we didn't have to go to school, and the students didn't have to go to school. Not just the athletes, the students didn't have to go to school. We were traveling. That's awesome. San Diego, up north, all over the place.
Mathematics and science can wait. Yeah. We got big things to do here, Rio. That's I love that. We used to do that too.
They played one team up north, I'm Fresno, Bakersfield, whatever. So I think they were beating this is the boys varsity, Todd's team. They're beating the varsity in that playoff game, and their fans start saying, "Go start the bus, go start the bus." And then Rio comes back, ends up beating them, and then we start saying, "I didn't start this. I might have started it, but go start the tractors, go start the tractors." Yeah, so it was fun, man. It was fun.
Oh, good times. Hey, with your wife, I've seen the banner, right? All that. There's like 5, I think it was 5 Hamptons on one of the banners. Yeah. Did she ever confirm? Did all Hampton? Was there all Hamptons playing on the floor at one time? Did that ever happen?
So my wife Noelle, her sister Alana, other sister Cheris, Pauline Hampton, cousin, and Marina Hampton, cousin, all 5, I believe, played at one time.
That's awesome.
On the same court.
That is so cool. That is really, really cool. Yeah. Good times there in the early 90s for sure. Football, basketball, baseball. I mean, you said football was hands down your favorite sport. What was?
Yeah, that was my favorite sport. It was probably the best sport I was halfway decent at or good at, so I loved it. I loved the contact, the competition, that sort of thing. And here's a funny story. So Ken Lee got this old game film from my senior year, 91. And it's a sideline shot, right? So not sideline, it's a from the stands, but sideline. It wasn't the typical up on the building scoreboard with with that shot. So he starts sending me these videos of me playing football, and I'm like so slow. I'm so just can't even move. I'm like chasing. And so I showed this video to my son, my older son. He's like, "Dad, you are sorry. What was wrong with you?" I'm like, "Bro, I was probably hurt. Give me a break. I'm playing both ways."
Yeah.
So that's pretty funny, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it was playing football there. It was fun. It was fun.
It's a special program.
Yep.
All the sports are great, but there's nothing quite like RHP football. The tradition, people still follow it all over the country and the world, all the graduates who've gone on, and it's really, really cool. So, well, Rod, what was after high school like for you? Let's talk about kind of post high school and college years and how you ended up in law enforcement. Was that something that you knew right away, and how did that all kind of transpire?
Hey, I'm going to close the door real quick. Hold on.
Oh, sure. No worries. To get a good look at Rod's wall here, man, you got all kinds of merchandise on there. Newspaper clips.
The Derek Fisher last second shot.
Derek Fisher against the Spurs. That one's framed nicely. Yeah.
Yep.
Point 4 or whatever.
Point 3.
Point 3. D Fish.
3. Yep. So, I went into the RHLA program after I graduated high school. I started working for Mr. Orsberg, doing, certain, odd jobs, painting Christmas card. He did Christmas cards and school fundraising stuff. I would work for him. I was going to Citrus College, and then I started cleaning pools with Rod Heaton. I was his pool man sidekick, did that.
Nice.
I started working at UPS, and UPS, I did unload in the morning. So I'd have to get up at like 2:00 in the morning, go do unload till like 7:38 and go to Citrus and fail and drop classes and, do the whole junior college thing for about 6 years. No, I'm just kidding. But so I'm at an alumni basketball game, and I see John Carrillo, and I haven't seen John Carrillo in a few years, and we didn't have Facebook or, I don't know what the dude's doing. I'm like, John, what are you doing now? Because John and I were roommates we lived behind the Parkers. The Parkers had like a spare detached, I guess, house kind of thing, garage. And we lived with the Parkers for like 2 years together. Like we were roommates. And so I see John at this alumni game a couple years later. I'm like, John, what are you doing? He's like, I'm a cop in Cyprus. I'm like, you're a cop? He's like, yeah, I'm a cop. Wow. I'm like, what's it like? He's like, dude, you could drive fast. You get to chase people. You get to like, it's fun, dude. Like you're on a team again. You're in a locker room. You're like, you get to get after it with your buddies and like, have fun pretty much. I'm like, he's like, you should try it. So I started applying, and I got into the LA. I was really close to getting hired with the LA County Sheriffs, like really close. And then I applied it at Huntington Beach, and Huntington Beach knew I was getting close to getting an offer or, going to the academy at the Sheriffs. So Huntington Beach basically accelerated my background process and said, hey, we'll offer you an academy spot starting in October of 1999. Do you want to accept it? And I hadn't got an offer yet from the sheriff. So I said, yeah, I'll take it. So that's what it was right there. I went to the academy in 1999, Orange County Sheriff's Academy, full stress academy, Matt. So these academy, Barnes can probably attest to this. These academies nowadays, if a drill instructor is yelling at you, you can, as a recruit, you can pull out a card, some sort of card, and then they have to walk away from you, and they can't yell at you anymore.
What?
Yeah.
No, stop it.
Yes.
You're yelling too much at me card?
Yes. You're stressing me out. I need time to adjust to what you're yelling at me for, and you have to walk away. So Orange County, there's still, I believe, a full stress academy where they're like up in your face. They don't cuss at you. They don't hit you, but they try to stress you out, because that's what you're going to happen when you get out into the field, right?
Yeah, you can't just pull a card out when things get tough out in the field. I mean, I'm not in law enforcement, but I got to imagine, oh, hey, this is too stressful, guys. Stop, whatever. No. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So that's what started it, man. It was John Carrillo. And I mean, I don't know how many police officers and firemen have come from Rio Hondo Prep, but it's quite a few,
Oh, big time.
And it's based on I believe, the type of, standards you're held to, the type of men and women that Rio Hondo Prep wants their students and, after they graduate to become. And I mean, at Rio Hondo Prep, you're pretty much groomed for those type of jobs, integrity, being reliable, being a leader, being those things that are required in those jobs.
Well, yes. I mean, serving others. I mean,
yes.
The structure, John Carrillo talked about it, being on a team again, and all that stuff. So if you will, while we're on the law enforcement topic, let's talk about what your career has been like. I mean, the past few years specifically have been a little rough as far as the perception of law enforcement. There's plenty of people out there who love and support the blue and know that it's a impossible job really at times. You also mentioned you've heard Bill Barnes on here a couple times. Yeah. So what are your thoughts of him and just your law enforcement career?
Yeah. So after I graduated in April of 2000, I went into the field training program, and it's a 6-month program. You go to 6 different field training officers, and they basically say yay or nay, they sign you off. So I get on my own. I get on a senior squad. So I'm on these dudes got like 15 years or more experience, right? And I'm a brand new dude on graveyard. But I got good days off. I got weekends off because these are all OGs, right? So I'm like, and these guys, so basically back then in 2000, after 1:32 a.m., you don't go on the radio. You don't get on the radio. You don't say anything. You don't do nothing because those dudes are sleeping, right? But I'm new, so I'm driving around trying to do stuff. And so I make like a car stop or something in this OG dude comes to my stop, parks behind my car and like honks his horn at me. I'm like at the car talking to this person that I stopped, right? So I go back to see what he wants, and he shows me this map book, this gridded map book. He's like, you see this? You see where you're at? Do you see where my area is? Don't come into my area and make stops. And then bounces, just leaves. I'm like, okay. Like that, I mean, that's just the way it was back then, right?
Yeah.
So after I got off that squad and got into, they just put me on different squads. I started really getting a niche into like stopping dudes who were, in possession of drugs. And back then, possession of methamphetamine was a felony. Possession of heroin was a felony. It's all misdemeanors now. It's a ticket. So, I got into that. I got into trying to stop gangsters and stuff like that. I was into like the criminal element, stopping criminals, not like soccer moms writing tickets, none of that. Like I wanted to, try and stop the dude who's going to break into your car at night and, steal your mail or your credit cards and stuff like that. So after about 4 years, one of my supervisors got promoted and he went into narcotics. So he asked me, he said, hey, he's like, there's going to be an opening, put in for narcotic detective. And I did that. So I made detective at about 4 years. So around 2004, 2005, which was like unheard of back then. You had to have 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
So I made detective, and that was the funnest part of my career, man. I got to dress down. I had a big Fu Manchu goatee. I shaved my head. I had my Dickies. Because back then Huntington Beach was like skinhead central, right? There was all these like skinhead type dudes. It was a gang called P9. They pretty much ran Orange County, specifically Huntington Beach. And they were into, credit card fraud, fake checks, selling drugs, stealing cars, that sort of thing. And so we did a lot of cases on those guys, which was so much fun. Like we did so much surveillance, so much, just search warrants. And I mean, hitting a house on a search warrant, like, okay, we used a lot of informants and say it's my case. And I say, hey, I call my informant. Hey, is dude home? Yeah, he's home. He's sitting on a 1/4 pound of meth. He's got a gun in the back room or something. So we would approach the house tactically. We're narcotic detectives. We're not SWAT guys. Bill Barnes will know the difference.
Yeah.
So we'd go up, knock a notice, police department search warrant, open the door, police department search warrant, open the door, boom, bust the door down, run in, on the ground. Just dude, guys, bad guys be running out the windows, everything. We chase them, helicopters up. I mean, that was like it's like an adrenaline rush. Like I can't even explain. It was so much fun.
Wow. We see stuff on movies and television that looks pretty intense. I can't imagine doing that stuff in person. It's you said there's an adrenaline rush. I mean, is there a little fear as well? Because it's a dangerous situation. You don't know what's behind that door. Or do you are you able to push aside that fear and focus more on the job at hand?
I mean, there was no fear for me. Like I knew that, especially if it was my case, I wanted to make the case. And, maybe that's not the right mentality to have. They do it completely different nowadays, but, yeah, I mean, I just, I wanted to get the dope. I wanted to get the scale. I wanted to make a sales case. I wanted to get the gun. I wanted to, get the gang enhancement. I wanted to do something where this dude's just, he's going to go away for years, Mm-hmm. And we had a team of like 8 guys, and everybody was like an alpha male. We're all alpha, like all the narcotic detectives in that unit at the time. were all alphas. They all had the same type of mentality. They just, you know, wanted to put bad guys in jail. And it was fun. I mean, that was ultimately like the goal was to, because these bad guys, they victimize people, right? They make life miserable for them. I call them opportunists sometimes. They're just waiting for an opportunity to jump on. And if you leave your keys in your car and you run into 7-Eleven, they're going to steal your car if the opportunity presents itself, right? So, you know, it was just my focus to try to put real bad guys in jail. And that's what I did for 5 years in narcotics.
It sounds simple enough that, you know, police go after bad guys, but was there an added, I don't know, motivation for you based off of where you grew up? You mentioned earlier that there was, you know, a lot of gang activity really in your city where you grew up. And did that kind of, I don't know, motivate you at all to try to get guys off the street who were going to be a threat to other people? I mean, civilians, kids, families, or whatever. Was there added motivation based off of kind of seeing things as a younger kid, kind of a bad area?
Yeah, man, Matt, that's spot on, dude. Because like when I was little, when I was younger, like I had to be aware of my surroundings. Like seriously, if I knew I was in this area, like Jeff Fairley, for instance, I would go to Jeff Fairley's house. Across the street from Jeff Fairley was like a family of do-rock Crips, like legitimate gangsters, right? They didn't mess with me or anything, but it was just you had to know, like, if something could pop off, so you had to be aware. Like going to school, you know, you just had to know where you were, where's this, going by this house or going by this house. Like you just had to know, like, oh, if that car's there, then that dude's there. And so that kind of led into, I guess, instinctively when I got into police work, like I could just like kind of like see a dude driving a car and he had that certain look, or, you know, he was all tatted up or something, and it'd be like, that'd be a pretty good stop. He's got a brake light out. I do a traffic stop. Dude's on parole. He's wanted, and he's got dope in the car. I don't know. It just came like naturally to me to have that, and that's what I like. That's what I like doing.
Yeah, it's interesting how many times I've heard that from police officers that, you know, a lot of people, there's this misconception, I think, that, you know, oh, cops, they just want to, you know, go, you know, all cops have this great background when they grew up, and that, you know, they just want to go after, you know, poor people or whatever. And it's just like, no. Most cops, the ones I've talked to anyway, they came from a little rougher background. They grew up, and this is like their way of not just giving back, but trying to make neighborhoods better than theirs was as a kid. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that from cops. Are there a lot of cops who have a similar experience to what you just described?
Yeah, some guys I know that grew up kind of in the you know, rougher areas and things like that. I mean, it's just, I mean, so in my place, we got over 220 sworn police officers, right? So, and say maybe 100 of those work patrol. You got your detective and stuff. So, but see, there's different types of guys. There's guys who just write tickets, like motorcycle guys. You know, all they do is write tickets and go to traffic accidents and stuff like that. They don't care about the dude who just robbed the bank. You know, they might care, but they're not going to like heavily be involved in it. Then you got your people who just, you know, do homeless stuff. We got tons of homeless stuff in Huntington Beach, and they just, you know, not harass the homeless, but just kind of like deal with the homeless stuff. And then you got your people who don't do anything. They just, the cops, especially nowadays, they just sit and wait for the radio call, you know? So yeah, I mean, the guys I know who like still work to this day, good friends of mine, they still do police work. They've come from, you know, I got a really good friend who grew up in Mexico, didn't learn the language until he was like 15 years old, went to the military, you know, was over in the Gulf War, I believe. And he, you know, he saw a lot of stuff, but he's a really good cop because he works his ass off, because he knows where he came from and where he is now. Like, this is like being a police officer is like fun for him. And it's like, he's like, I can't believe they're paying me to do this. Like, because, you know, like, and it's just, there's so many different people and different, you know, people's mentalities and stuff like that as cops. But I mean, for the most part, the guys I'm friends with, they have kind of my same mentality. Like, let's look for bad people. Let's not write people tickets for, you know, I don't know, for expired registration. Like, who cares? Like, so
bigger issues out there for sure.
Yeah.
So you said 5 years, you're a narcotics detective. What happened after that, or kind of where did your career go from there?
So after that, so when you're in narcotics and gangs, you only do 5 years because I don't know why, like they want you to rotate out because they don't want you to get too heavily involved, and because you're working with informants and stuff all the time, you're doing undercover stuff. So it's more of a, you know, we don't want you to get too deep into whatever it is. Like, I don't know, 5 years. That's what they came up with. So I go back to patrol. I become a field training officer. So I'm starting to train these new men and women who become cops. So this is around 2009, 2010. And I do that, which was pretty interesting. I did that for about 4 years. And it's funny, like, seeing these new cops that I was training. Like, I had a guy who Huntington Beach has this little neighborhood. It's primarily a Hispanic neighborhood in the area of Beach and Slater. They got a couple traditional Hispanic street gangs in there. So I see this gangster I know. We're driving around at night, and I go, "Hey, let's stop this dude. I know he's on parole." So we stop him. He's probably got a warrant or something. But he starts fighting. Immediately starts fighting, like literally, like he's trying to get away. He's swinging and everything. And I'm carefully watching my trainee to see how he reacts to this, but he's doing it in a fashion where he's letting the guy pretty much manhandle him. Backup officers get there, they take the guy into custody. And I asked the police officer I was training later, I go, "Why didn't you like strike him? Or why didn't you hit him? Why didn't you just put him on the ground?" He's like, "Sir, I thought he had to hit me before I could hit him." I'm like, "No, bro, you're going to die with that mentality. You don't have to be hit or shot at before someone does something. You know, you handle it, end it. Like, he's resisting you, end it right then, as quick as possible, as safe as possible." And so, I mean, that's what they were kind of teaching in the academy. I believe they're scaring these young kids who want to be police officers, like, liability, you're going to get sued, you're going to go to jail, you're going to lose your house, like, all these things. I'm like, if your heart is in the right place, if you believe you're doing the right thing, you're going to be fine. Like, you're going to be fine. You can explain it, you can write it in a police report, and you'll be fine. But they're just so, especially this guy, he's just really scared. He's never been in a fight before. This guy's never been in a fight. So,
wow,
you know, I kind of get to see stuff like that. So I did that for about 4 years, promoted, went back into detectives as a gang detective. And now I'm working as a gang detective, but I'm with the narcotic detectives. So I'm with guys I trained in the field. Now they're detectives with me. So that was kind of cool, you know?
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. So I did that, and that was interesting. I did that for about 4.5 years, doing gang cases. So we had our gangs in Huntington Beach, and by this time, all the skinheads and all that, they're pretty much non-existent. They're either dead or in prison. So the Hispanic gang in Huntington Beach was, you know, primarily what we focused on, and we would have shootings. We would have, you know, shootings on, you know, mostly weekends and stuff like that. We get called out. We'd have to come in, interview people, stuff like that. But so recently, I was about, let's say, September. So September of 2020, I'm driving in we call the neighborhood, the little gang neighborhood, and I see two gangsters I know. They're in this car, and I'm like driving, I see them, and they do this, straight ahead stare, like, don't look at me, don't look at me. I'm like, hey, and I know the dude. I'm like, hey, homie, stop the car right there. They're both on parole. They're not supposed to be together. And so the passenger takes a sip of his beer. He's got a tall boy, takes a sip of his beer, looks at me, puts it down, bounces out the car. He's gone. Oh. And this dude never runs. So I'm thinking he's probably got a gun, right? So I put it out. The driver backs up, takes off, pursuit's on. So I'm in pursuit of this dude. We're driving. He's driving, kind of crazy, trying to, obviously get away. It's about 1.5 mile pursuit, 2 mile pursuit. The dude just slams on the brakes. The driver slams on the brakes. I crash into this guy. Airbag goes off on me. My car's disabled. He drives off because his car's not disabled. I rear-ended him. And he turns a corner and he crashes. He could have got away. He crashes. The helicopter's up. We get him, and he tells the officers, like, "Why'd you slam on your brakes?" He's like, "Because I was pretty close to him. He's like, I knew if he crashed into me, his airbags would go off and the car would be disabled." Like, these guys talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So, that was pretty crazy. And I just recently had, from that and from other, fights and stuff I've been in, I had neck surgery. I had my spine, my C6 or C4, 5, 6, and 7 fused and 3 discs replaced on my neck. So I just came off that surgery in June. So I'll be off for a little bit, but I can't wait to get back to work. I love doing what I do. I'm 47. I can retire at 50 if I want, but I want to try and max out and go 8 more years. But it's like the climate you said the past few years is whatever, but the people in Huntington Beach, the real people who live there, the citizens, they love the police. They support the police. And, coworkers of mine are like, "Besuzzi, bro, you need to shut it down. Like, stop chasing these fools." I'm like, I'm not going to sit in a parking structure and wait for radio calls, bro. I'm going to go out and work. I don't care. Like, I'm going to do my thing. That's what I do. That's how I train people to do. I'm not going to, say one thing when I get a trainee, like, hey, let's be proactive. And then when I don't have a trainee, not be proactive. That doesn't set the right example. So, I love being an FTO. It's basically at my place, if you're an FTO, you get sergeant's pay. So it's like a 25% pay increase when you have a trainee. So, and if you're a good FTO, they give you trainees all the time. So that's what I like doing. It's basically it's coaching them up, Matt. All I'm doing is coaching them up.
Yeah, this is just like RHLA coaching kids or whatever. Yeah, that's
coaching them up. Yeah, and I'm coaching little man right now. So little man, he's in Pop Warner. He's 8, and I'm on a. So this is interesting. So I'm on a coaching staff with a guy who's 57, another guy who's probably around 50, and me, and then the head coach's adult son. And these guys have no ties. They have no kids in the program, no kids on the team. I'm the only one that has a kid on the team, and I'm the assistant coach. So I'm like, this is the first time I've ever had coaches who don't have kids on the team. This is going to be like real football, right? Like at the 8 and 9-year-old level, like these coaches aren't going to, play daddy ball. They're going to figure out the best 11, and those guys are going to play. And so, I'm so looking forward to this season, especially after, not having football this last year, Pop Warner football. So yeah, my little guy's really looking forward to it.
You allow your kids to play tackle football, Rod?
Yes,
that is so unbelievable. That is so reckless of you.
Yes, we do. We play tackle football. We do basketball. We do baseball. We do junior lifeguards in the summer. We do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we do it all.
Man, that is awesome. That is very cool. Dave Joe told me, you love the beach. You're living down there at the beach. Yeah.
So
boarding stories and stuff.
Oh, so Ken Lee, my boy Ken Lee, he was really into the ocean and the beach, and he started bodyboarding probably back in 93, 94, I guess. And so I would start going with him, and I got hooked instantly. Like, bought a wetsuit, fins, a boogie board, and we started going quite a bit. and we would go. So Kerry Youth Church started at 9 o'clock, right? In the summer.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was hot, too hot.
Ride waves till around 7:38, drive back to Arcadia and go to Kerry Youth Church. Once that's done, back down to Newport Beach and ride some more waves.
You did it in, oh, sorry, the internet cut out a little there. You did it in the morning before church, went to, and then went back?
Yep, on Sundays, yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was addicted. And we would go to this place called The Wedge. And have you heard of The Wedge?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would go there, and Ken wasn't too fond of The Wedge when it was like over 10 feet, but I loved it. And so once I started going to The Wedge, like I would just go solo. Like I'd go as much as I would. Sometimes I would work at UPS, get off at 6:30, 7 o'clock, skip class at Citrus College, and go down to Wedge and ride Wedge, and just like, I'm sure that's probably part of the reason my neck is messed up, just getting pounded by those waves. But it was fun. And now my 16-year-old, he rides Wedge. So it's pretty cool seeing him out there.
And 47 years old, do you still get out there in the ocean a little bit?
I'll get out in the ocean, but I'm not going to Wedge.
Yeah.
I'll get broke off.
a lot of damaged parts already. That's so funny. Yeah, live in Orange County and just the beach area is great down there. Let's see. I had a few questions or not questions. I asked some of your peers for some topics and questions, so we can bounce around a few right now. Just some quick memories, if you will. Todd Carson, he said, ask him about the bike ride to Mount Care. I've never seen him more exhausted and bitter. The varsity didn't have to go, just the JVs.
Yes. So Mr. Horton comes up with this brilliant idea. Let's ride bikes to Mount Care.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, and I had like this hoopty bike, 10 speed, whatever, and like some guys bought bikes for this thing. And we wake up at like the crack of dawn at Care, and I don't know how Mr. Horton mapped this thing out, but he mapped it out, and we start riding to Mount Care. And by the time we got to the mountain part of the ride, the sun started setting. And by this time, I'm walking, dude. Like I'm pushing the bike. I'm not riding the bike because it's so steep. Finally get to the top, ride into Wrightwood, into the actual town. And that Mr. Horton's like, hey, Mr. Parsons is going to come with the Jeep or a truck or something, and he's going to put our bikes in, and he'll take you guys up. I'm like, no, I made it this far. I'm riding up, or I'm walking up. So I think myself and Dave Lemons were the only ones that made it. Actually, from Arcadia, Kerry Youth League, all the way up to Mount Care.
That's ridiculous.
At like 11:30 at night, and all the varsity guys are asleep. So, and then we hiked home that same trip. We hiked from Mount Care all the way to Chantry Flats and got picked up.
Stop
3 days.
I have hiked home from Mount Care. We did that a couple times actually, but never a bike ride up there. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yes, so I was a little bitter. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's again a story I don't quite believe, but I know it's true. Todd also talked to me about you became closer friends with Todd and Pete and these guys after high school. Really, he said you guys used to go to a lot of Dodger games and you'd buy those cheap seats and then try to sneak down. He said the seventh inning was kind of the cutoff as far as ushers not caring as much. You got a lot of memories of that?
Oh man, I think I came up with the idea. So anyway, so Todd would go to a lot of Dodger games, and Todd had this red broke down truck. Like, I'm like, Todd, are we gonna even make it to do you remember the truck?
I don't know. He had a few, so probably.
Dude, he had this truck that was like some Datsun or something. Like, Todd, we can't even drive on the freeway with this thing, dude. So we would go to games. We get to the game, Dodger Stadium, $6 pavilion seats, right?
The best.
Right field or left field, $6. Now they're like $110.
Oh.
So anyway, we'd sit in the pavilion, and I started looking over at like the field level, and these people would start leaving like in the 5th inning. I'm like, where are these people going? They're leaving. They're like leaving the game. And the score is like 3-2. I'm like, all right. I go, Todd, let's go down there. And once they leave, we'll catch the door and we'll just go in. And so we started doing that. We got caught a couple times. We did. But then like Todd said, like after the 7th or something, like we might miss an inning or two, but like after the 7th, the ushers like, go ahead, dude. Like, we don't care. Cause a lot of like, that's what Dodger fans are known for, right? Leaving like in the 6th, 7th inning, right?
Ridiculous.
So we would go and we would sit like behind the dugout, like literally behind the Dodger dugout. There was no netting. There was no like, oh, you're gonna get hurt if you throw a foul ball. Like, we would sit there, and it was like, man, I loved it, dude. Like, we would try to go to so many games as possible.
Best $6 you ever spent.
Best $6 ever spent, man.
Oh man, I remember that. The pavilion, the top deck, those are both $6 now. I haven't been to a game in a long time, but yeah, you try to sneak down. Todd was always good about that. I went to the College World Series with him. We walked always looking for those better seats. The free upgrade.
Yeah, and we would eyeball them. So we would eyeball the seats from like the pavilion. We're like, okay, those 4 seats right there. No one's been in those seats for a couple innings. Let's just try and go. And we would like stagger down, like, we wouldn't make it obvious. We would kind of like try to be discreet about it. But yeah, man, we got some up close action at Dodger Stadium,
man,
quite a few times.
Oh yeah, especially the summertime. Actually, me and my friends were that way in college too. We didn't have much money either. We would just try to get to as many games as possible, and so much fun. Dodger baseball. Pete Clark asked this question. He says, "Who was your favorite baseball player, or maybe a couple growing up, since you went to so many baseball games?"
Well, so my favorite Dodger was Mike Piazza. Mike Piazza was like, barely drafted. I think
Italian thing.
Yeah, Italian thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Drafted as a favor of Tommy Lasorda, whatever, and became, all-star Hall of Famer. I don't know why they traded him, but whatever. So, and then I was a big Darryl Strawberry guy. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because I was on the Mets, Greg Loomis's team, when I was in junior high.
Oh, but yeah. I'll do it.
But I love Darryl Strawberry. And the Mets won the World Series, I believe, in
'86.
Yep. So, that, and I like Doc Gooden. I like that. I just like that team. Like they were like a hard nose, just obviously we know now they partied all the time and, did coke and booze every single day, but whatever.
That documentary was great, right? Yeah. Doc and Darryl. Oh man, that was good.
That was awesome. And so, and I loved his style. I loved his swing. I loved he was from SoCal, Crenshaw High School, a local guy. And when he got traded to the Dodgers, oh man, dude, that I couldn't believe it. And then when Eric Davis got traded to the Dodgers and those dudes were in the outfield for maybe 20 games that season together because they got injured all the time. I mean, but it was cool, man. And I mean, I remember sneaking down one time. I don't know. I think Todd was there. We're right behind the Dodger dugout, and Strawberry hits like a walk-off home run. And they didn't really rush the field back then, but he comes in and all the teammates go out and he does an interview. I'm like, good job, Straw. And he's like, does the, salute type thing. And I mean, it was cool, man. Like he was my dude. And it's funny. I follow him on Instagram now. I don't know if he's a big time, like, Christian. He's like a minister.
Yeah.
Like, he's changed his life.
Mm-hmm.
He's got, addiction and recovery type homes for people, and so, I mean, I'm obviously I've never met the man, but it's like, it's good to see somebody who's been through so much just turn their life around and become somebody who can, by experience, help other people. And that's pretty cool.
Definitely a guy worth rooting for, and to see, the transformation that documentary went into a little bit of that at the very end. Dodger baseball. I liked I was a little kid. I loved Piazza. We could do a whole podcast, Rod, on stupid Dodger trades. I mean, it would take forever, but we'll talk about other sports, why you became a big sports fan, but or how that all came about. But while we're on the topic of the Dodgers, the defending world champion Dodgers, it was a weird season last year, but what did that mean for you to see them win the title finally after 1988?
So in when was it the Astros? That was 2017.
17, yes.
So I went to game 1, game 6, and game 7, and quite a bit of money spent on those tickets to take the family, right?
Oof.
So, that was obviously disappointing in cheat gate, whatever, like, whatever. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? Like Jim Rome always says that. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, whatever. So, last year was like, I don't know, dude. I'm a huge Dodger fan, but I want to see them win it outright, like legitimately win it outright. 162 game season, right?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's really, really win it. I mean, they got the rings, they got the championship trophy, whatever. They probably deserved it in 2017 if dudes were beating drums and stuff like that. So, but your boy Barnes though predicted they won't make the playoffs, so he's screwed now. They got Scherzer, they got Trey Turner. Did you see that game last night, or did you know what happened?
I saw they got shut out on Monday against the Asterisks, and then I think we're recording on a Thursday here. And then Wednesday they beat Houston, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Put up some runs finally.
4 home runs, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I'll say this: the Dodgers, they're not afraid to spend money and make some deals anymore. That's they do. I can't believe they brought in all these guys. Yeah. Barnes is an expert in his own mind sometimes, but I love having him on the program weekly.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
can you imagine Barnes because we all wear body cams now, right? Could you imagine Barnes wearing a body cam when he worked?
Oh my God. I gotta
he'd
bring
be
that
fired.
up.
Like he'd be like in federal penitentiary.
1 week he'd last. I love his.
I've never met the man, but I know the man. It's funny. Like there's dudes like Barnes in my work, right? Old salty vet dudes who, and it's like, yeah, I know Barnes. He seems like a cool dude. Like
he's awesome.
Tells it like it is, man. First
time I met him, I think he just retired from the PD, and we were working some baseball game together. And like the first inning, someone pops off in the dugout and he just lights them up. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then he's
is he using, can you like cuss at the other managers if they're cussing at you? No, seriously.
Well, unofficially, no. Yeah, you're not. It's frowned upon. You're not supposed to use that type of language.
At my work, it's the same thing, but we do it all the time. So.
But hostile environments sometimes cause hostile language. So we've all said things we probably regret. You guys in law enforcement, of course. But I love him. He's on here a bit. When I first brought him on. Retired cop. I'm going to have him on weekly. He's going to say some outlandish things. And I can't believe how many Kerry Youth League, Rio Hondo people love him. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Dude, his little people story, bro, I was laughing my ass off. I could not believe, I'm like, he's making this shit up. But I'm like, he's pretty detailed. So he's probably not making this up.
No.
In his whole like, have you been to Hollywood on screen testing these dudes? Like, Barnes, you can't do that. You can't talk about. I guess you can now. You're retired, but like,
that's what I love him. He's retired. He can say talk about stuff. He's like, what are they going to do to me now?
Yeah, what are they going to do to me? What's the statute of limitations on screen placing somebody?
I try to come up with questions because some of his stories, I don't believe either. I'm like, oh no, he's telling it right on, because fact checks always seem to come true. But anyway, no, I appreciate that you as a current officer listening to Barnes, and a few officers have said that. Yeah, we don't know the guy, but we know him, or whatever the phrase was. So Rod, what about other sports? Big Laker fan I see behind you. USC football. Dave Joe talked to me about you loving USC football, and have you just kind of been this all around LA sports guy? Did you love it more as you got older?
Well, growing up, I'm a Dodger fan, I'm a Laker fan, and I'm a Raider fan. At 47, I'm a Dodger fan, I'm a Laker fan. Well, the Lakers, we'll talk about that, but I'm a Raider fan. So, just going to Dodger games, like selling your 30 circus tickets to go to the Dodger game, right?
Yes.
And back then, that was the only game I went to. I'm a 8-year-old kid. I go to one game a year. That's selling my circus tickets. No one's taking me to a Dodger game, right? Like, unless I get super lucky. So, that's how it started. And, then winning the World Series, I was in junior high. That was amazing. Hey, was Todd Carson at the Kirk Gibson walk-off game?
He was,
right?
Yeah. He casually talks about it too. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was like one of the biggest moments in all of baseball.
He went with a dude named Dusty Lane, whose parents, I believe dad had season tickets. Okay. That's who he went with, I think. Yeah. And so, just seeing that and being a part, being able to watch that. I mean, I'm a Dodger fan. Like, I'll always be a Dodger fan. My little guy, he's a Dodger fan, but he's an Angel fan because guess who the Angels have? Mike Trout and Ohtani, right? And they're 30 minutes away from my house. It's easy to get to. So we'll go to some Angel games too, but I'm a Dodger fan. Lakers, the 80s, being a Laker fan was, oh my goodness, dude. It was amazing. I would go after church with Scott Moore, Jeff Fairley to Scott Moore's, like he lived with a bunch of like college guys, and we would watch the Laker game, turn down the volume and put on Chick Hearn.
Yes.
That's how you did it, right?
Same here, baby.
And going on that 87 trip, we went back to Boston, and where everybody's sporting for us, we're all sporting our Lakers stuff, walking around Boston. And it was, that was like, nobody got traded back then. Like, Magic's not getting traded. Michael Cooper's not getting traded. Like, these dudes are dudes on this team. Like, they're not going anywhere, right? There's no super teams. But like the Shaq and Kobe era, like, I would go to a lot of games with Dave. And to me, that was still basketball. That was still just running an offense, using your big man. Big man's not shooting 3-pointers. Big man's down low, trying to dunk on somebody, right? Basketball. And, the Kobe era and that whole thing after Shaq left. To me, it was still basketball. And Kobe, everybody knows Kobe. Like, he's just he's a machine. Like, he operated so differently than these guys do today, right? And like, I honestly, Matt, this last year and all of this year, I didn't watch one Laker game, dude. And it's just, I didn't have a desire to. I really didn't care. And I don't want to get all political and stuff, but it's like these guys, like LeBron James, right? Like, he, a police officer, I forget where it was, shoots and kills somebody who had a gun or something, or was stabbing.
Mekhi Bryant, yeah.
Yeah, was stabbing another female, right? Trying to kill her. And the police officer shoots and kills the person who's stabbing the victim. And LeBron James, basically, this cop's like, puts this cop on blast, like, you're next, it should be you. Like, how do you even like know what this police officer, his mindset at the time? He's trying to save someone's life. Like, what is he supposed to do? What do you think he's supposed to do, LeBron James? Like, so whatever, man. Like, it's kind of like a, turn off. Like, I'm not like really into it. And especially the way they play basketball nowadays. It's just like, shoot a three. Don't play defense. Don't play defense. Like, it's just not fun to watch.
No. And I think the game has changed so much in like the physical side of it. I mean, a guy gets like brushed now, and he wants to chest up with someone, like he's going to actually do something too. It's like, dude, I mean, the 80s, there was no flagrant fouls. There was none of that stuff. I mean, even it's spilling into now everything is so soft. And I think guys are making, $40, $50 million a year, and then want to be all tough. And it's like, it's so, I don't know. It's watered down. It's not real. It's inauthentic to me. Yeah. So I've been fine not watching NBA basketball. I haven't missed it.
Yeah, neither have I.
It's sad because it was my favorite thing to do. Even more than Dodger baseball, than the NFL. It was usually 3 or 4 games a week. Usually, Tuesday, Wednesdays. Friday nights. That Sunday afternoon game was always a big deal, right? Yeah. And but yeah, it's just kind of, I've moved on from it, sadly. And I am no fan of LeBron James. Even before all this nonsense with him, I never really liked the guy. So when he came to Lakers, I was like, oh, there it is. There's my moment to walk away, I guess. What about USC football and your Raiders? Your Raiders moving to Las Vegas. I think it's a great fit there. You're a big football guy on the weekends?
Yeah, like I would go to a lot of SC games with David Joe, bring my son, and we'd probably go to almost every home game. The Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart era, like I witnessed that. Like, those were some fun years going. And went to the Orange Bowl with Dave, went to the Rose Bowl when they lost to Texas. When I don't know why they ran Lendell White, but whatever. Like, those were some fun times. And
even though that was a loss, that had to be such a cool experience to be.
Oh yeah, we sat next to some Texas fans, and they were bawling their eyes out. Their team won. Like, it was cool. We were congratulating them. Great game. Like, this is probably one of the best college football games. Like, probably top 10. I would believe. So it's getting to see that. And getting to see what Dave was pretty cool.
Was the Orange Bowl against Oklahoma? That's the one you went to the national championship?
Yeah.
Fun fact, I was actually at Pete Clark's house. He had us over. We were doing some crab legs or something, because they were playing his beloved Sooners. And, I think Oklahoma won the coin toss, and that's about and then it was all over from there. Yeah. I don't know if they won or not, but poor Pete Clark. Did you rub it into your good buddy after that game?
A little bit. But didn't SC have to vacate that championship because of Bush?
I don't, probably. Yeah. You can't.
I think they had to
go back in time or whatever. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
You can't take away what happened on a field, I think.
No.
But that was fun watching that with Pete.
Yeah. And so the Raiders, obviously they were in Los Angeles when I was a kid, and that was, Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson. I mean, oh my goodness, dude. So I went to a friend of mine got tickets, and he didn't have anybody to take them. So I asked my grandfather, which was my father's father, can you please take us to the Raider game? We have like 4 tickets. Do you know who Tim Brown is?
Oh yeah. 81. Yeah.
81. Okay. Notre Dame guy. This was his rookie year. This is his first game as a Raider. Runs back like the kickoff or a punt, scores like 3 touchdowns. And I was like, man, this is awesome. Like, I'm a Raider fan. And then, Bo Jackson, that, whole era, that was cool. And then once it went up to Oakland, my wife and I went to a few games up there. Had a big Super Bowl party at my house when the Raiders played the Buccaneers and lost. And yeah, I mean, Vegas, like, I've driven by that stadium and I'm like, dude, I got to get in. I got to see what that stadium's like.
Oh yeah.
It looks amazing. Yeah. And so my older son, we started going on football trips when he was probably 8 years old. So first game we went to, he's an Eagles fan. I don't know how, I don't know why. He's like LaShawn McCoy back in the day, whatever. He's an Eagles fan, right? Okay. So we go to Eagles. We've been to an Eagles Raider game. Eagles, Arizona Cardinals, Eagles at Dallas. That stadium's amazing.
I went there last year. I went there 2 years ago with my brother to a Rams game. That was awesome.
Yeah. Isn't that stadium like, it's so nice.
It's so big in person, and it's just one huge party. The outside area. I'm just like, wow, this is football heaven.
Yeah. So we've gone to some games. I mean, just football in general. NFL's like, I kind of call it like, it's flag football with pads on now. Cause I mean, it's everything's like just aired out. Like you can't tackle anybody legitimately anymore because you're going to get a penalty. Like, it's all offensive, scoring. So, that I don't really like that much, but whatever. It's still fun to watch.
No, it absolutely is. And I got to tell you this, Gruden better start producing their Rod or that $100 million contract. I mean, he's got the money either way, but I've seen they're in a tough division. I'll tell you that. I'll say that the Chiefs and the Chargers, especially. Yeah. But I'm excited. Football season's coming. It seems like, I don't know, during football season, I think everyone's more happy. I don't know what it is. You have that natural weekend. And
for me, I get Friday Night Lights. I get Saturday Pop Warner, and I get NFL Sunday, and then I get Monday. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like And you want to talk some, like, can I talk local high school football where I'm at?
Absolutely. You're in a rich area down there.
So local high school football where I'm at. My son's at Elisa Miguel High School. Okay. Elisa Miguel High School it's a huge high school. It probably has like 4,500 students. Their football program's not very good. I mean, they're okay, but they make the playoffs, but they go round 1, round 2, they get bounced. Because if you're a dude, you go to Mission, you go to J. Sarah, you go to Mater Dei, you go to, these Capital Valley, you go to these schools where guys transfer like crazy now. I don't even understand it. Like, do you, like, when you were a CIF official, did you know, like, man, this receiver was on this team last year, now he's on this team? Like, would you guys ever pay attention to that stuff as an official?
Yeah. Oh, big time. I mean, there were kids, I swear to you, there was a few kids that went to 4 different high schools. And,
yeah.
And you
how
saw
do they even do that? What kind of waiver do they get? Because I know you got to sit at least 5 or 6 games.
Guys always seem to find a loophole. There was a,
okay.
A grandma's address
right.
or
okay.
hardship here. It was funny, the guys that were able to do it. And it's just, I don't like it. I wish more players played in their community. Now I know Rio's a private school from a lot of different communities, but there's just no like allegiance to, where
there's no loyalty.
Yeah. It's not there.
No. And so at Elisa Miguel, where my son is, last year they got a new head coach, and it was the COVID spring season. They had 5 games. They went 0-5. They lost all 5 games. Right. My son played varsity as a sophomore. And so, I mean, that kind of shows you right there, like, it's just, if they had, like you said, if you had the people in my city or Laguna Niguel, Listo Viejo, who are supposed to go to that school, the kids who were supposed to go to that school and play football, then they would be a good football team. But it's just not that way, And like, so it's cool because that's not cool. But what's cool is, like, last year, 5 games. We played all the local schools. We played San Clemente, Trabuco Hills, Capital Valley, Tesoro, and every team. Oh, and we played El Toro. Every team had a kid on the team that I coached when they were in Pop Warner with my son CJ.
Wow. And
so we would get pictures of them all together in their high school uniforms after the games.
Oh, man.
And that was and they're like, "Hey, coach, what's up, coach?" Hugging it out and stuff. And it's like, it's so cool to see that these kids I coached when they're little kids, now they're in high school and they're role players. They're actually playing, And we told them long ago, like when they first started, like, hey guys, the ultimate goal for you guys as coaches, we want you guys, if you continue to play football, we want you to have that high school experience, because there's nothing like it. You may be good enough to go in college, but if you play high school football, you're a part of that team, you're a part of that community, you're part of that high school. Like, and if you're a dude, you're gonna, like, people are gonna, like, know who you are at your high school, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm so looking forward to this season. They started pads this week at the high school level. He's got a scrimmage next week against San Clemente. Then the season pops off. We're in Huntington Beach on the 20th, I think, and then 11 game schedule from there. So, I mean, we're excited. He's playing linebacker and tight end both ways. So
it goes quick, man. It goes quick.
It goes quick.
We used to say when we were refereeing football Friday nights, it's the fastest 11 Fridays of the season, because you blink and the season's over, and you're looking forward to it again. So best of luck to him and his teammates down there. And yeah, I think there is this, like, I hate using there's a crisis for everyone says, oh, it's a crisis, this crisis, that. So I hate using that word, but I think, to your point, kids are transferring to the bigger schools, and then kids aren't playing football in the numbers that we're used to. We've seen over the years. So the product has diminished a little bit because of the combination of those.
So check this out. His freshman year at Elisa Miguel, 70 kids go out on the freshman team. 6 kids out of the 70 have played tackle football. All the rest were flag or first time players. That's crazy to me.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's just like, I mean, I know concussions, I know, all this, it's all scary stuff, right? Everything's so scary, but it's like these helmets, these helmets they have these days for these kids, they're amazing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they got helmets now. If they register a type of hit, like let's say a hard hit, they have sensors on the sideline to know which helmet it is. They'll pull the kid off and they'll do like a concussion protocol with them.
What in the world?
Yeah, dude. Like, so it's like, that's the technology they have. And still people are still scared to play, have their kids play tackle football.
A little different than the helmet you and I used to rent from the shed, right?
From the shed. Yeah. Hey, get that cracked helmet over there. It's okay. It's got a little crack, not a big crack. There's no certifying helmets or anything. It's like, it's crazy, dude. But it's still like I'm really good friends with a guy at my work. He went to ASU. He played with Pat Tillman, dude. He huddled up with Pat Tillman. And so, and so we always talk like, something like we'll just talk and we'll like look at guys we work with and stuff like that. Dude's never been in the huddle. Cause you just know, like, Matt, you play football.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Like,
I totally get it.
Know how it is to be in a huddle.
Oh
like,
yeah.
You know what that means to be in a huddle. And it's like, you could just kind of tell, like, man, that dude's never huddled up with anybody. Like, it's just, it is what it is. And so
I love it.
Like, and that's what I like about my job. I mean, obviously everything has changed, but I go into a locker room, we talk shit with each other. The music's playing, we're changing out. Like, it's cool. It's being part of a team again,
Yeah.
And so for these kids to just be in a huddle, to be on a team and to learn these lessons through football, through sports I think we need more of it, but getting away from it. So
I know character building through adversity. What a concept,
Yeah.
I learned more on a football field than I did in any classroom, and I will take that to my grave. Hands down.
Same here, dude.
Yeah.
And it's just, adversity, being a good teammate, working together as a team, just those things are just, that, and that's what now at the Pop Warner level, I'm coaching these 8, 9-year-old kids. That's what we're trying to do. And that's what we do daily,
Love it, man.
If you don't block this guy, your teammate's going to get potentially hurt because you didn't make your block. Come on, man. You got to block this guy, just stuff like that, but
ultimate team game. You gotta love it. Man. Now I'm itching for football here to come up soon. We're recording here in August. This will air in a few weeks, but you said earlier, Rod, that you're a fan of the podcast. You listen. I mean, who are some of the people that have stood out to you, or the favorite podcast you've listened to since you got a little later start, of course, but when you reached out to me, I was just blown away that guys like you have listened, because we've never met. And to hear, you listen to some of the Rio episodes and all the episodes really, but who are some of that have stuck out to you?
Yeah, I really like, I like Todd. I mean, Todd Carson. I like his interviews. I didn't truly know some of the things Todd was dealing with. And I just, once he, opened up about it, I was like, man, Todd's a brave dude. Todd's a stand-up guy to put out there what he was dealing with. And I completely respect that,
Yeah.
I mean, Mark talking about his, you've had him on a few times talking about Rio Hondo Prep football, high school football. I love the one where you were at the Poly game and you're interviewing AJ. Now, I had AJ. I had AJ at when he was at Pearl Prep. I did the after school program there, so I'm pretty cool with him.
Oh, nice.
And just interviewing those guys before and after the game. That's pretty awesome. I'm sure that was an amazing game to be at, and you got lucky enough to be there. So that was pretty cool. I like that one. I like I like all the Lee boys. All the Lee boys was great. Mr. Lee, that was great. Patricio.
Oh man,
that was awesome.
He's sharp.
And I like your Cal State Fullerton. The professional photographer. I forget his name.
Oh, Matt Brown. Yeah,
Matt Brown. That was awesome. I think I even sent you a little message on that. He was awesome. Bernansky. I didn't know that Bernansky. I remember Tom Bernansky, the baseball player, but I didn't know he had a brother who was a pitcher.
Yeah,
he seems like he's a fun guy to probably hang out with and have a couple beers with.
Big Joe, a couple dozen maybe. Because he's a big guy. I can put him back. It was good times with Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still catching up. Like I just listened the other day to your Linfield Christian coach. That dude seems like squared away. That
Oh yeah.
That was a good one. All the coach, like he coached Landon Goodwell over at UTEP, and I like that one because I like listening to coaches. I like other coaches, how they run their programs and what their philosophies are, right? Like different coaches have different philosophies, and I like listening to that type of stuff.
I interviewed the new Citrus College head football coach recently. He'll be on soon. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So,
yeah, I like Paul Clark's. Paul Clark's funny.
Paul is
the
character.
I was at his house when he basically signed his contract. I was there. I'm like, I go, hey Pete, how long do you think PC will be gone for? And Pete's like 2 weeks. I think he was back in like 3 weeks or something. So, but
that's hilarious.
Having him on, it just, yeah, dude, like Dave Joe, man, I thought Dave was Dave is a professional. Like he is like a professional. But he needed to get like loosened up a little bit. Like he was too like corporate job interview type dude. That's what I thought. So whatever. But I love DJ. DJ's my boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm still catching up. Yeah,
the Lee boys are fun. I'm going to have some repeat guys come back on. Now that it's been over a year and still working on new guests such as yourself too. And right. So we're gonna keep this thing going. And I am going to try to have Mark Carson on during the football season. The plan is to have him on Mondays, kind of looking back at last week's game and looking forward to the next week's game, and just kind of keep people informed of what's going on with Rio. So that's the plan. So we'll see if it works out.
So we have like this shirt, right? My son wears these shirts, these Rio Hondo Prep shirts, to his football practice.
No way.
And the coach is like, what's this Rio Hondo? He's like, my dad went there and whatever. I'm like, hey, tell your coach to schedule Rio Hondo Prep like next year or whatever. Yeah. And but Mark's like, no, we can't. We're not going to schedule you guys. I talked to Mark about it. He's like, maybe in a few years. I'm like, come on, Mark.
No,
because Mark told me a couple years ago, the former coach at Elisa Miguel called Mark and said, hey, we need a game. Are you available this date? And they couldn't do it. They were at their bye week. They were up at Mount Care at the time at like science camp or something. So it almost happened.
Wow.
Maybe they'll meet in the playoffs or something. But maybe. I would love to hear tackle by CJ Besuzzi against the Rio Hondo Prep kid. That'd be kind of cool. That
would be really neat. Yeah. They played like Laguna Beach or something.
Yeah, they played Laguna Beach. Yeah.
But yeah, that would be cool. Maybe it'll happen. It'll happen. Well, good luck to him and to everything, Rod. This has been a blast. You're one of the only guys here to almost go 2 hours with me. I mean, try to keep these shorter, but hey, when you get talking, just naturally flows.
Yep.
I appreciate everything, man. The support, the stories you shared with us today. And I'm sure we'll be in touch here soon regarding anything, sports, things to talk about. And I'll definitely be hitting you up, man, if I'm ever down in the Orange County area.
There you go. Anytime.
Yeah, that's great, man. Well, best of luck on the injury recovery. And thanks for all you do. In all seriousness, man, you and your brothers out there in law enforcement, we love y'all and need you guys.
Appreciate it, Matt. Hey, keep doing what you do, man. It's something now that I look forward to it when you have those guests on, and you're doing a good job.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Had a little break here in early August, but we'll get back at it soon. So this has been a blast. And Rod, thank you so much for joining me today.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye now.
All right. Bye.
Well, what a pleasure that was to sit down with Rod Besuzzi and talk about law enforcement, Rio Hondo Prep sports, professional sports, high school football with his kids and everything. I mean, just a tremendous, great interview there. I enjoyed every second of it. So our new studio here, not really a studio, just the living room here in our new home. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and more episodes coming out soon. We'll be having more guests on Fridays and get back to our regularly scheduled programming with Monday sports. Try to bring on head football coach Mark Carson from Rio Hondo Prep as well on Mondays. The weekly Wednesday weigh-in with Mr. Bill Barnes, the retired police officer, and a new guest every Friday. At least that's the plan. So keep your eyes out for new episodes on social media. Wherever you follow us, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Greatly appreciate all the support. Guys, have a great weekend. We'll see you again on Monday. But until then, guys, no matter what you're doing, whether you're out on the town or rounding third base, get home safe.